Dave Smith here. Okay, so this video is the final video in the basics volume of getting started in film photography. What I've tried to do in this first section of videos is to get you going from nothing. You've never shot film before, maybe you've not even photographed before, I don't know, but certainly no film, or you've shot film years and years and years ago and you've been digital and now you're hankering to get back to film, like a lot of people. And I've tried to do this in a way that has not been costly, all right, so that you can dip your toe in, you can see, but it isn't going to break the bank. And I think the total spend so far would have been, what, £30–40 for a camera, £10–15 for a developing tank, some chemicals and your film, and I think that's probably about it. So we've kept the cost pretty low for you. Now if you are keen to get buying some equipment, don't worry, we will get there, but I wanted to keep the cost low to begin with. Now, so I started with this camera, and I have to say it is a beauty. And if you checked out my medium format camera, the Mamiya Universal, I talked there about the weight of various cameras. This is by far the lightest camera that I've got. It's not going to float away on a breeze, but it is the lightest camera that I own. Nice and compact, very small, you can carry that about with you. So we started from there, and we have ended up, if you followed through the series, last video, you would have developed your set of negatives. And now the question is, what are we going to do with them? Because a negative on its own isn't a lot of use. And we want to be able to do something with them. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about digitising. Now, that's not my intention in the long run. I'm just talking about digitising right now to keep the cost as low as possible. Where I'm headed ultimately with this is to take you through sort of film photography in depth, to give you a real understanding, and then into darkroom processing. And you'll see my enlarger in the background waiting to be set up here. So that's where we're heading ultimately, but we want to be able to see our images, we want to be able to share our images in the short term, and we're going to do that by digitising. So again, just as with everything so far, aiming to keep the cost as low as possible. So we're not talking about buying a scanner specially for digitising your negatives. We're going to use things that you probably already have or that can be had for cheap. Here is the setup that I use if I want to turn my films into digital. This is just a very cheap LED light panel. This whole thing cost me £5. And it's set up, it's got a regulator, voltage regulator here, US to USB, so it can plug into, I'm going to show you, one of these batteries. This is the RAV Power 20,000 milliamp hour battery, and if I just plug that in, that lights up, and that's the light source that I use behind my negatives to digitise them. This set of negatives, I've got a little clear acrylic plate, and I've very carefully used some decorator's tape, and I've just taped the very edge where the perforations are. So just tape the film down onto there to keep it secure. Put that down, and then, and of course I've left it over there. In fact, I'm going to go get it. I've used my mobile phone because we've all got a mobile phone, we've all got camera on our mobile phone. Now the camera on my mobile phone is actually pretty good, and it will shoot 40 megapixels, and I changed it to 40 megapixels for this because typically mobile phones won't focus close enough so that a 35mm frame will fill the screen on your mobile phone without zooming in lots, and you don't really want to do that. I zoomed in a little bit, but if I've got 40 megapixels, then that means that I can crop into it on the computer pretty vigorously and still have a sizable image. And that's it. That's all I did. I plugged this in, turned it on, set my phone to its maximum resolution, held it as close as I could, and still getting good focus from the internal camera, and just took an image. I've then sent that by Gmail to myself, to my own account, so it'll come up on my computer, and then I can process that. And we're going to jump in and have a little look at that as well. And I'm going to use a free program for that, so that you don't have to be spending money on digital software right at the beginning. Now you might ultimately want to get into sort of more advanced processing programs, and my strongest advice to you is not to bother with Photoshop. It's a ridiculous program. There's far too much in it these days. You know, and any user, however advanced a user you are, you're only ever going to use a tiny fraction of what's there, and yet you're paying for it all. I would strongly advise that you don't use Photoshop. And in fact, I use a program called Affinity, which is pretty cheap. It's only about £50. But I'm going to show you a free program first called GIMP. GIMP is not a program that I would advocate in the long run. It's a bit clunky to use, but it will work. So I'm going to jump in. I'm going to get these into the computer, and then we will see how we process these and how you will end up with a finished image from your negatives. And just to show you, here's my sheet of negatives. So I've got 6. I've got 6 to a row, and I've got 5 rows, 1 here and 4 here. So I got 30 on mine. You'll get 36. You'll get an extra row in here because I roll my own, remember, and I didn't roll it with 36. When I rolled it, it had 30 frames on, more or less. Okay, so that's the setup. You want a very cheap LED light panel. The cheapest you can find would be perfectly adequate. I think most of us these days have these battery power things, these power banks. We've all got a mobile phone with a camera. You're good to go. So take the picture, get it into your computer or your laptop or something. Download GIMP. Right, that's it. That's literally what it's called. It's a free open source software, and then you can see what I do and do that with your own images. Okay, so I hope you're enjoying this series. When we go on from here, we're going to talk in some detail next about things like exposure, composition, developing. I gave you a down and dirty way of getting your film developed. It is the method we used is a method that I do use for various images, but there are other ways to do it, and we're going to investigate those. We're going to, as I say, we're going to go into things like exposure in several more steps. So in the next step, we'll talk about meters and how metering works, but we're going to take that even further in subsequent volumes. There's a lot for us to discuss. Anyway, let's get you going into this software and get your negative into an actual image. If you like your image, I would love to see them. By all means, send them to me. I'll feature them in another video later. Really looking forward to seeing what comes out of this. So let's dive in. Let's see how this software works. Okay, so here we are. This is the main screen for GIMP. As soon as you open the program, this is what you're going to get. So our first job is to get our image into here. So we go to File, Open, and we're presented with some recently used. I don't want those. And then down here in this left pane, we've got all the places where our things might be. So it might be on the desktop, documents, but I've downloaded mine from an email, so it downloads into my downloads folder, which isn't conveniently here. I could add it, I think, so let's try that. Nope, doesn't seem to be working like that, so let's just go and navigate to it. So it's going to be in my downloads folder in here, and it's going to be one of these recent ones, and I'm going to go for this one. Nope, this one. That's the one. Okay, there we go. And here's my image in there right now. Okay, so you're going to end up with something like this, and we've got an immediate problem, and that is that it's a bit skew width, so we're going to square it up before we do anything else. To do that, we're going to go to the top ruler here, and you see how my cursor changed as I get to that top ruler. And if I click now, just after the cursor changes and drag, I get a guide. I'm going to bring that guide down, down, down to about there. Now, if I go to Image, so I'm in the top menu bar now, Image, Transform, and then I can do an arbitrary rotation. Now, I suspect there's other ways to do this, but this is how we'll do it. So as we bring our cursor in now, you see it's got those rotating rectangles. So if we click now and just drag, then it turns, and we can just eyeball this. It should be good enough, I think. There we go. Now if we are sort of super picky, we can go up here to the Move tool, okay, and it'll do the rotation. Now I can drag this down to there. And yes, okay, so that's not perfect, but it's not far off, so we will just perfect that a little bit. So I've gone back to the rotate tool up here in the toolbar, in the tool bin, and I'm just going to very carefully rotate that back. Get that, there we go. So that will do nicely, and hit enter and just accept that. Okay. Then our next job is to pull the image out that we want. Now I didn't fill the frame here because my phone won't get close enough, won't focus close enough to fill the entire frame. This is why I've shot in 40 megapixels, so that when we do crop in, so I'm in the tool bin, I've picked up the crop tool. When we do now crop in, I'm just going to go slightly into this image, like so, and hit enter to accept that. There we go. Now we want to zoom in. So back into the tool bin, pick up the zoom tool, and just click a couple of times. We'll center that up. There we go. There's our image. Now our next job is to get it the right way up. So we go back to Image in the menu bar, click on that, down to Transform, and we can rotate through 180 degrees, like so. Okay, just going to undo that, just to show you something else. Image, Transform, and flip vertically, Now you see that's not the same, is it, as the rotation, because look at the writing here. Okay, so if I go back again, I'm going to edit, undo, image, transform, rotate. Now look at the writing here. Okay, so those two operations are not the same thing. You could do a flip vertical followed by a flip horizontal, and that would make the writing the right way around. This is just one step this way. Right, so we've got our image now. We've lifted it out of the image that we want. We have cropped into it. We have turned it the right way up. Now we need to turn it from a negative into a positive. Now there are many ways to do this. I'm just going to stick with the simplest methods at this stage. So now we are going to colours, and about halfway down you'll see there is invert. Click on that, and that's inverted that image. Now the problem is that it's way too bright. So let's go back to colours. Let's go to components first of all, and go to mono mixer. Right, and just click on that and then click OK. That'll take out any colour that was in there because it looked a little blue. Now we're going to go to colours, and we're going to go to levels, and we're going to make matters worse. Okay, and we're going to pull this black slider in. Let's see. Oh, that's looking quite nice. Okay, and then we'll just tweak that a little bit. So this is kind of getting there now. So I'm going to click OK for this, and then I think possibly the final thing we will do is brightness and contrast. We will bring the contrast up, not too much. That looked a little ugly, so just a little. We'll take the brightness down a little more. Okay, and that's all looking kind of good. And that's kind of it. That's as much as we're going to do at this stage. Now, as I say, we will be doing other things. Now, you see I've got a little mark on here. All right, that mark is because the negative was damaged by rolling onto that stiff reel, if you remember. But we'll live with it. We could get rid of that, but we're just going to live with it. So that's it. That's our image. Now we've taken that from the negative, and we have turned it into a positive. We've sized it nicely. Just one or two things we'll check on is we'll look at image, and we're going to look at canvas size. The canvas size is 2156 by 1440 pixels. Now if you wanted to print that, you'd print at 300 dots per inch, and if you've got 2100, that's about 7 inches by 5, more or less. So you get a 7 by 5 image off that crop without any real difficulty at all. Okay, because we had to crop quite a long way into that 40 megapixel image, but still plenty to play with there. Now I've not done anything about sharpening this. I've not worried about sharpness at all, because you know I've taken this quite rough and ready with a mobile phone. So I just want enough to see what our image looks like. So now what we would do is we would save this image so that we can share it online, or just keep a digital copy and see how we're getting on. So to do that, we go to File, click on File. Now you see there's a Save As option here. I'm going to click that, but we're not going to use it, because if you look up here in the name field, this is all highlighted so that I can change that, and I can just type. If I type now, because it's highlighted, it'll overtype the name that I choose. However, the extension is XCF. Now that's a GIMP extension. So what's happening here is GIMP is offering you the opportunity to save this GIMP project. Right, we're not saving the image here. We don't want to do that. What we want is to go to File, and not Save As, but Export As, right there. Now when you look up here at the name, the extension is JPEG, and that's what we want, because we want to be able to share this. This is still all highlighted, so I can type a name, and I'm just going to type Mining Art Gallery, because that's what this is a shot of. And then I can choose. Now if we look at this, at the folder, it's in the downloads folder because that's where it came from. I don't want to save back to there, so I could choose documents or pictures or desktop, or I could put it into my archive drive. I have 3 drives on here. I have three hard drives plus the system drive. So these are 3 terabyte hard drives inside my computer. So I could put it in that archive, I could put it in social media. It probably wouldn't go in the landing zone, although it might. I've got a working projects folder in the landing zone, new uploads folder. But I could choose any of these. I'm not actually going to save this. This is just a trial image, but you will want to save yours. So that's kind of it. That's how we get our negatives. Having gone through all that process, we chose our camera, we've been out shooting, we've learned a bit about exposure, we've developed our negatives, and now we have scanned them with our mobile phone, and we have found out how to change them from negatives into positives and into an image that we can share. I've tried to do all of this in a way that doesn't cost very much money, so that if you decide it's not for you, then you haven't invested much in the process. But as we go forwards from here, we're going to learn more and more and develop skills and get better and better at what we're doing. So I hope that's all been of some interest to you. I hope you've enjoyed following along in this first volume, which is the basics. Next series will be taking all of this a step further, and we'll see where we get to from that. Ultimately, we're heading towards printing in the darkroom, so this is just an interim stage to get you to a point where you've got images that you can share. I'd love to see your images. If you followed along and you've got your first set of negatives, drop me a line in the comments, send me an email with your image attached, and if you do send images, I will include those in future videos. So, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you in chapter 2. Bye for now.